Your, your mics and cameras are turned off. If you want to ask anything, please use the chat feature of the webinar. We are now ready to begin. But first things first, Vasilis and Yannis, please introduce yourselves. And let's start with you, Vasilis.
So thank you very much, Tasso. And yeah, good afternoon to everyone. So my name is Vasilis Danos. I'm working for TUVIT. It's a German company, and I'm also located in Germany, near Düsseldorf. And I'm leading the activities around trustworthy AI. And so please apologize for my voice. Unfortunately, I catch a cold, and so therefore I hope my voice will not fail during the webinar.
Yannis, your turn.
Okay, thank you very much, Tasso. Hi, I'm Yannis. I'm the founder of Code for Thought. We're based in Greece, and I'm very happy for today's webinar. Thank you all for your attendance, and I look forward for the discussion today.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you both for your introductions. Yannis, can you please provide a brief overview of the EU AI Act? What is its purpose and goals?
Yes. Give me one moment to share my presentation. First of all, I will start saying a couple of words about Code for Thought. We as a company exist since 2017. We have ample experience in assessing large-scale software systems for banks, telecoms, government, and in general, very large corporations. All this expertise we're bringing into the AI world, and also helping companies govern and test their AI systems. We are welcome with great pleasure the EU AI Act, and we subscribe to its purpose because, first of all, apart from improving the functioning of the European market, it is promoting, or its ambitious goal is to promote the human-centric and trustworthy artificial intelligence. In general, our team believes a lot into the mantra that we should build technology that can be trusted and it is thoughtful. So it has been built with a purpose to serve human beings and citizens and clients in general. And so the purpose of the EU AI Act helps towards this goal in order to ensure the high level of protection for human beings and for organizations, and also protecting the democracy, rule of law, and last but not least, the environment. So those are the goals of the EU AI Act. And in order, let's say, to operationalize them or to serve them, it dictates a series of rules about how one can place their AI system in the market, or they can put it into service, or they can use an AI system. It prohibits certain practices for artificial intelligence systems. Vasilis can explain a lot more about it. And also it defines very specific requirements for high-risk systems and obligations for all the companies who operate those systems. It is also important to say that for systems that might not be on the high-risk category, still the EU Act dictates certain transparency rules that they need to follow. So first of all, each human being needs to know that they interact with an AI system, and that's something that is imposed by the EU AI Act. And in parallel, it promotes innovation, supporting SMEs and startups by setting more lightweight requirements for this type of organizations, and also for accepting from the EU AI Act systems that are going to be used solely for research or scientific purposes. Now, so in essence, the EU AI Acts concern all the providers and operators of AI systems that either they build them within EU or they plan to those systems to be utilized within EU. Also, it concerns all importers and distributors of AI systems within EU, plus all the product manufacturers that an AI system might be a component of the product or may be related to the product. but most importantly, it concerns all those persons that may be affected by the use of AI systems within the European Union. And we believe that this is also very important to be underlined. Not the EU AI Act is not concerning only businesses and governments, it also concerns individuals, which is very important, and it protects also the fundamental rights of individuals. Now, one thing that all of our clients are asking when it comes to the EU AI Act is, what does the EU AI Act defines as an AI system? And the EU AI Act is trying to harmonize themselves with other international bodies such as OECD. So this is the definition of an AI system. It is important to say here that in the beginning, the about software, so AI system was a software-based system, that they changed it into a machine-based system, as we all know, in order to cater for cases like robotics or like embedded software. So that is a very important, let's say, change in the definition compared to the previous versions of the EU AI Act. But most importantly, if one wants to distinguish between an AI system and a non-AI system, the magic word is inference, the property of inference and the level of how automated this inference is, or is less dependent to human operator. This is what defines decisively, let's say, an AI system. So to put it more simplistically, when we have a probabilistic system, that the final decision or the final verdict of the system is not hard-coded in the code or is not hardwired there, so there are not multiple if-then else's behind the decision, but it's mostly a matter of probabilities and a matter of an algorithm to decide, then we're leaning towards the AI side, and that it might be a decisive factor for an organization to define whether a system is an AI system or not. Now, about the timeline. Today, we are waiting for the linguistic approval and the publication in the official journal of the approved text, the approved final text of the EU AI Act. Then by the end of, so we expect that within the next 20 to 30 days, the EU AI Act will be operational. And its first impact will be visible on the banning of all those AI systems that will be of an acceptable risk. As I said, Vasilis can tell you a bit, way more things about it. So in Q1 of 2025, so in 6 to 9 months from now, companies need to start applying the codes of contact, especially for those systems that are in the high risk, low risk category, sorry. And by the end of 2025, the operators or manufacturers or implementers of general purpose AI systems, they need to comply. Same goes by the end of 2026 for all those companies operating high risk systems. And by 2025, by the end of 2027, we expect all those systems that are not directly regulated by the EU AI Act, but they are regulated by sectoral standards or harmonized standards, also to be to be compliant with the EU AI Act. So last but not least from my side, these are the levels, the four risk categories that the EU AI Act defines. It's an acceptable risk, the high risk. Vasilis will tell a little bit more, we'll start a bit explaining more about it. Then we have the limited risk, which is like chatbots and deepfakes. And then we have the minimal risk that code of conduct is required, which is for spam filters, video games, and so on. And now I will pass the ball to Vasili.
Okay, thank you very much, Yannis, for the introduction. It was a very thorough introduction. Vasili, can you please help us understand how does the Act define the high risk and the unacceptable risk systems?
Yeah, sure. So thank you very much, Yanni. And before we dive deeper into the definitions, just a few words about my company. So the TUVIT, it's a German company belonging to TÜV Nord. It's a TIC company, and trustworthiness service provider. And we are strongly focused on IT security in general. So we are trying to cover as many as possible of domains like software evaluation, information security management systems, hardware evaluation, the classic cybersecurity, and as well as my domain, the safe and secure AI, in which the EU AI plays a very important role. And to talk about a little bit more about the definition of the risk levels and the EU AI Act. So taking a look on the risk level pyramid, as Yannis presented, there are a lot of more categories than unacceptable and high risk, but today we will focusing on the two most important categories, which consist by applications summarized in the unacceptable risk or forbidden application category, and as well as the high risk category. And what does it mean? So what is the definition of unacceptable, for example? So unacceptable risk is defined or defines every application which impacts fundamental human rights. So it could be impact on free speech, on human decisions or the opinions. So once an AI application targets these kind of fundamental rights, it will be automatically categorized as an unacceptable risk. Or even discrimination if the AI-based application tries or exploiting some properties of humans like age, color of mental state, or targeting children, or specifically targeting biometrics of children, and targeting fundamental privacy rights like applications in the real-time biometric monitoring in public spaces, etc., and as well as untargeted scraping of facial pictures. So imagine if you developing an application which starts scraping a lot of pictures and corresponding names from Facebook and so on. It's also considered to be a forbidden application. And regarding high risk, so a high risk application is considered an application which affects life and health of people. So it could be a safety concern or safety critical application, or an application targeting different aspects of health or mental health of humans. Or it could be an AI-based automated assessment of personal data, like in the area of job performance and so on. I think Yanni will show you a little bit more examples regarding this high-risk category. And as well as AI-based applications within critical infrastructure will be also considered to be high risk. So this is more or less a very high-level definition of these kind of categories. And I want to show you some actual examples of both categories. So if you're talking about forbidden applications, show just two examples of this class. So if you may heard about the social scoring system or biometric surveillance system in China, there's an automated system monitoring and observing the public space, and automatically recognizes the faces or biometric features of people, and generating a social score, identifying the people in real time, and affects a lot of big chunks of the population. And this is absolutely forbidden in the EU, as well as monitoring applications like on the left side. This is a biometric application monitoring the work performance of the employees of this coffee shop, analyzing how many cups of coffee they were able to create in a certain time, as well as monitoring this presence time of the customers and so on. These just some actual applications of this area, and a little bit more applications about the high-risk category. I will not go through the entire list. I think, yeah, Yanis will talk about a little bit deeper regarding this topic. But one example picking from this list, it's the critical infrastructures to highlight what the impact of high risk is. So a critical infrastructure might be a satellite or space-based communication, which may fall under the EU Act categorization under high risk. And so it's summarized or cover any AI application that support automation of, let's say, satellite networks like anti-collision systems, positioning, or AI data processing, AI data generation, and so on. And another example could be a common data center. So if you imagine a very common data center, maintaining the communication of a lot of people and so on, and it's considered as critical infrastructure. So what kind of role plays AI? So just looking at a very, let's say, this illustration, this cooling system of the data center may contain a control unit, and the developer of this control unit was very innovative and introduced an AI-based management system of this control unit for the cooling system, managing the power and the cooling management of this data center. And so once the AI component is responsible for controlling the system and may cause a failure or have influence on the reliability of this data center, so it may classify it as a high-risk application at the end of the day. So just to highlight what kind of implications these kind of requirements or definition might have in reality. And
I was going to ask.
Yeah, so just okay, that's it. And I think Yanni will take the lead and talk about the high-risk application in more detail.
Okay. But before we discuss about the high-risk applications, Vasilis, can you please elaborate a little bit on what are the requirements for those two categories of AI-based systems, meaning high risk and forbidden systems?
Sure. So we talk about the general definition of forbidden applications and high-risk applications, and some aspects regarding this topic. But what about the requirements? So for forbidden applications, it's quite simple. You have to deal only with one requirement. So you do not use applications from this area. Otherwise, you will facing penalties up to 35 million euros or 7% of the worldwide sales of your company. So there are nothing more requirements. It's absolutely forbidden for companies or developers and so on, or to use such applications. So there are some exceptions for legal authorities or military domain, but for the public sector, it's absolutely forbidden. And regarding high risk, it's allowed to use such kind of applications, but you have to follow a long list of requirements. And some requirements regarding high-risk applications start with maybe data or data governance. You have to implement and maintain a data governance system. You have to keep documentations and records of your application. This could cover the source of your training data, your management of your training data, the role definition, who has access to your training data, and what is the quality of your training data. You have to provide transparency to your customers or users. You have to inform your the customers about the capabilities of your AI system, about the training data, the origin of the training data, and so on. You have to install human oversight to manage risks which cannot be managing automatically, and so on. And I think the most important requirements are the robustness, accuracy, and security requirement, because it's quite different than compared to the common ATIS world. So what does it mean, robustness and accuracy? I will talk about later about this topic, but keep in mind that this requirement is not easily managed and fulfilled. And also the testing and validation requirement is also strongly connected to specific AI aspects. And the last requirement is related to a risk management system. So the EU AI Act requires you to implement and maintain an AI management or risk management system. So yeah, this is a long list, and even for the straight or many straightforward requirements like data governance and record keeping, you have to deal you have to deal often with very AI specific let's say topics, and if it comes to for example AI and privacy, you have to deal with completely different requirements than you get used to from the GDPR, for example. And so this was related to let's say common AI applications, but if it comes to general purpose AI, which is more or less the definition of large language models, foundation models like ChatGPT or Mistral or Claude models. So the EU Act requires a category. I named it, let's say that's called high risk plus, because for GPAI you have to deal with a lot of more comprehensive requirements, like more detailed documentation and record keeping. You have to provide a lot of training data transparency. You have to register your GPAI to the AI office and notified bodies. You have to implement an incident reporting. And the most important part is you have to conduct in-depth testing and comprehensive adversarial testing and red teaming of your model, even by involving third parties, independent third parties. And once you reveal some vulnerabilities of your model, you have to implement mitigation strategies. And I will talk about a little bit later about the impact of these requirements. But just a first overview, what does it mean if you want to use or develop such a foundation model or general purpose AI? And just a footnote, the transition period to be compliant to these requirements, it's only 12 months. So you don't have the full 24 months for common AI applications. You have to be a little bit faster for compliance.
Yannis, Vasilis demonstrated previously that high-risk AI systems can be hidden even in the cooling system of a data center. How can organizations exercise due diligence and identify systems that are under the umbrella of the EU AI Act?
Thank you very much. This is a very good question. And following Vasilis' thorough analysis, the first thing that an organization needs to do is to create a so-called AI inventory. So they have to identify all those systems that may be operating in different business functions of the organization. So for instance, if you're in the banking sector, and your HR department is using, let's say, an automated software to screen employees or assess employees. And in parallel, in your risk management department, you have your own credit risk model. This means that actually you have high-risk AI systems in both functions. Or you may be running in your, let's say, marketing department or another department, you may be running another type of system that still assess or scores people or employees or clients, and then you need also to assess its criticality and whether it falls under the high risk category. So all in all, very large organizations, they need to create this kind. All organizations, they need to create this kind of inventory in order to identify the algorithmic / AI systems they may be having, and then have somebody, especially a legal expert, with I think here we need to say that both Vasilis and yours truly, we're not lawyers. It's whatever we are presenting is our own engineering interpretation of the whole EU AI Act. So somebody from a legal point of view need to help here. But it is important, and also, for instance, if you're in the telecoms industry, but still you have a credit risk application for your clients, still this is high risk. So all in all, the use cases on the very left may be subjective to multiple interpretations within several organizations. One thing that is important to stress here is that anything related to military and defense is exempted from the EU AI Act. Same goes for AI systems that are being built solely for scientific purposes. And one other thing is that the so-called harmonization of the EU AI Act for certain sectors, like the medical devices sector, that already strict, let's say, standard regulations are applicable. There, the EU AI Act leaves some room for the operators or the producers of this kind of AI systems to decide whether and in what way they are going to comply with the EU AI Act, based also on their own standards. So it leaves some room there for producers to exhibit that how they can comply, how they can harmonize their compliance mechanisms between the sectoral standards and the EU AI Act.
Thank you, Yanis.
Sorry, last, just to underline also something here, that the EU AI Act concerns a lot of governmental functions, because if we see on the left side, we have law enforcement, migration and asylum, administration of justice. So several also sectors within government, within the public sector, are going to be affected by the EU AI Act. It's not the private sector only who is affected. And same goes for the energy companies, utilities companies, because we see lots of critical infrastructure in these particular domains: gas, heating, electricity, and water.
The truth is that the AI Act is a huge, let's say, act, and cannot be covered within an hour of a webinar. But let's proceed. Vasilis, can you provide an example of fulfilling, let's say, the necessary testing requirement for AI robustness, which you said is a crucial requirement?
So I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, perfect. So just picking one example about robustness. So if the AI Act requires robustness testing for your high-risk application, so it means you have to conduct these kind of analysis by maybe a third party to assess the robustness of your AI application. And robustness means how is your behavior across different kind of influencing environmental factors. As an example, if you have to deal with a face recognition system your AI application is dedicated to be an biometric face identification system, and you have to assess the robustness. You have to conduct a lot of variations of your input data, like simulating noise, simulating different kind of lighting conditions, different kind of contrast conditions, and so on, to assess and to be assured that about a certain level of robustness. So this is only related to biometrics, but if you have to deal with the safety domain, once your AI application suffers from some lack of robustness, it might end up in severe damages or injuries of people. Therefore, you have to assess the robustness, to have a feeling and an analysis how well behaves your AI application if the environmental conditions of the input data are changed. So the same issue applies also to the security domain. These kind of vulnerabilities might be exploited by external or malicious parties. Just an example, if you have an AI-based surveillance system checking for the presence of unintended people, the picture shows, okay, that the left person is well identified. Once this person wears a very funny shirt with a very funny pattern, or this disappears completely from the system. So it could be a security issue. And again, in the area of biometrics, if you be able to fool the AI system by introducing some special noise and so on, you can cause that this AI system will misclassify this person. So this just very simple examples. What about what robustness, accuracy, and security means in the manner of these requirements?
Thank you, Vasilis.
Just to close this topic regarding the GPAI, you also have to do robustness analysis and red teaming, which extends the classic robustness assessments by analyzing the prompt injections or analyzing the probability of model stealing, adversarial attacks. What about if the prompt structure is changed? Will your model behave toxic, and so on? Just an excerpt of the requirements you have to fulfill and the test strategies you have to conduct.
Okay. Before we continue with the next step, let's say, where we will discuss the practical steps for compliance, let me remind our participants that they can ask their questions through the chat feature of the webinar. And let's proceed with how can we achieve compliance? And many may say, okay, compliance is further down the road and deadlines is 12 or 24 months away, but they still have little time until they press the panic button that we have to be compliant yesterday. So Vasilis and Yannis, can you please elaborate what are the best practices that businesses must follow to ensure timely compliance with the Act's requirements and establish trusted relationships with partners and customers?
Good question, Tasso. First of all, here we have also the disclaimer that you need to consult a legal expert as well. And I think we are building the best practices as we speak. So it's let's say the suggested practices for now, and we will keep let's say keep calibrating. So from our point of view, as I said, the first thing is we need to identify, to create the AI inventory. We need to define within our organization what are our AI systems. If and which ones are. Then we need to see how well are documented and how we can get access to the data sets for the training and the testing purposes to see to have a good understanding on the documentation, the surroundings of our system. Then it is important to classify the risk based on the EU Act, and definitely there you need the help of a legal expert to interpret the act, understand also the use case of your systems, and then deduct and classify them in these four risk categories. Then for those systems which fall, especially in the high risk, there needs to be a technical assessment, the testing and validation that Vasilis was mentioning before. We see that there are standards helping there. The ISO 29119 for testing and AI systems, it provides guidance and best practices for that. Also, the ISO 25059, which is the software quality standard for AI systems. As soon as we have completed also those tests, then we can come up with our recommendations and then start building, creating the risk management system that the EU Act also dictates, and it will be beneficial for an organization. And there are standards like the 5338 are very 5538 are very useful and to give us a very let's say concrete direction and the common terminology on how we can build our risk management system. That's from what we see in the market right now, and this is what kind of steps an organization can follow to start being compliant with the EU Act.
Vasilis, anything to add?
Yeah, of course. So I want to highlight one further aspect regarding data privacy. So, hope the slides are visible. So following the requirements Yanis showed, so another topic could be how to be compliant and how to deal with, let's say, data privacy. So the EU Act will not reinvent the wheel because GPTR is still valid, but you have to extend this framework by AI-specific components. And what kind of components? It could be the assessment about the extraction of personal data of your model. So it's does not sound as easy as it is because the model does not saving the personal data in the same manner that the common computers or on a hard disk are saved. They are maybe, let's say, anonymized or pseudo-anonymized, and therefore you have to assess if these kind of personal data which were included in your training data can be reconstructed, because once the data can be reconstructed, you cannot longer pretend that this data is anonymized. So you have to deal with pseudo-anonymized data, and therefore you fall under the requirements of GPTR, as well as further special aspects like the right to forget. GDPR requires companies, for example, to delete sensitive or personal data from the database once a customer wants to delete the personal data. So it's a very simple task for classic systems. You have to just delete the information from your database. But how about delete the data from your trained model? So you have to retrain your model to delete this data. So just keep in mind the training of GPT-4 costs $65 million. So you have to do the retraining again and again, or you have to use special techniques to force your model to forget the learned data, and now you have to assess whether this data was actually forgotten. And as well as the right to explain, you have to provide explanation about the data processing, regarding GDPR, and therefore you have to conduct techniques like explainable AI to fulfill these requirements. So you already, you face that these kind of requirements are very special, and you have to deal with new tools, specialized tools to conduct such assessments and to be, let's say, compliant with these requirements.
Thank you, Vasilis. You previously mentioned, both of you, that meeting the requirements of the AI Act is a hard job to do, and therefore many companies may not be in place to do this compliance exercise. So what can be the added value of a third-party advisor to help an organization comply with the Act's requirements? Yanis?
Yeah, first of all, a third-party advisor is not part of, let's say, an organization's politics. So they have, let's say, the necessary objectivity to do their work as expected to. Plus, they've seen several different organizations, and they have a collective, let's say, they have accumulated knowledge that can be applied to their clients. These are, let's say, the typical, let's say, advantages. Also, one thing that organizations, they need to understand is that by complying to the AI Act, helps them address also the elephant, as I like to call it, in the boardroom. Because one serious, one urgent matter that large organizations need to address is the failure rates of their investments in AI. So according, let's say, to several consultancies and advisors such as Gartner, only in 2022, 85% of the AI projects were delivering erroneous results. And as you can understand, this may lead to systems not seeing the light of, they don't go to production, money goes down the drain. So paying attention to the quality of a model and the trust, let's say, how responsible an AI system was made, will also have will also create benefits for the organizations to invest in not only in compliance, but actually to invest in improving their systems. Because at the end of the day, the EU AI Act is a very good opportunity for organizations to start improving their own systems, which means they will start improving their businesses. And I think this is let's say, this is the last remark I'd like to do for today, that the compliance gives the opportunity also to improve your business.
That's a very good point, Yanis, and I would like to ask Vasilis about the same, let's say, issue. What are the business benefits? So let's make it more clear. Why does a company need to comply with the Act, besides the financial aspect, of the penalties?
So just to add some aspects to Yanis' explanation. So the most important benefit is, from my point of view, to provide trust in the application to customers. So if you are compliant to the EU AI Act, you'll be, let's say, on the safe side regarding many risks of your AI system. So you don't have to do your own assessment, which may be not recognized as a trustworthy assessment. Therefore, you be on the, let's say, just an additional benefit for marketing, to even worldwide, to be on the safe side regarding trustworthiness, regarding anti-discrimination of the application, and could be an added value for selling the product. And the other side is, of course, if you see the EU Act and the requirements on the first time, they require a lot from you and from your company, and they also require a lot of money. And if you start very early to fulfill the requirements, to be prepared for assessment, to be prepared for the risk management and so on, you will keep the cost as low as possible and the effort as low as possible. So you don't have to wait until the act is mandatory. You have to start very early to be, let's say, on the pole position in comparison to your competitors, for example.
At this point, we have
Yeah.
reached the end of, let's say, the panel session. And now we enter the section where we answer the questions of our participants. And we have one question, which is a broad one from Yorios Tsournos, but I will phrase it. Do you believe that the evolution of the AI technology and industry will have finally a negative impact to the world? Or let's say I add a second question to this one. Or do you believe that initiatives like the EU AI Act and the Bill of AI in the United States will manage to balance, let's say, innovation with security, fairness, robustness of these systems? Both of you.
Vasily, if I may, and I mean, we wouldn't be here today if we were feeling that the things are not going to get better. So I'd like to be very optimistic and say say that we don't believe that. Of course, there is a risk that things can get worse, but let's just say that companies like TUVIT or Code4Thought or people in this webinar, we are on the forefront to avoid this.
Celia, something quick because
Yeah.
we have another 3 questions waiting. Okay. So another question from Spiros Nicolaou. Who has the responsibility to conduct an assessment on AI risk and its robustness? Vasily, can you answer this one?
So the responsibility lies to you. So if you are a developer or a company which uses AI, so you have to deal with that. So you can't wait until an authority will approach you and requires you to do some assessment. You have to do by your own effort and your own motivation to conduct such assessment. So for some applications, you can do this by your own if you have the capability and the experts. But if you don't have these capabilities, you have to go to external third parties like Code4Thought and TUVIT to do this assessment and to have an let's say evidence for compliance. So because at the end of the day, you have to prove or you have to provide evidence that your application fulfills the requirements of the EU AI Act.
Thank you, Vasily.
Also, to complement what we see in organizations is that everyone starts from their IT department to start asking those questions and whether they can take the responsibility. But soon as they identify AI systems in different functions, then also like marketing or HR, so also these functions, they need to contribute for the assessment of an AI system.
Okay, here's another question from Yannis Demergis. Does the AI Act covers topics about personal data ownership? And for example, can we request to delete data from banks, both from the organization and the model? Who wants to take this one? Yes, Vasilis?
So the AI Act relies on the GDPR, and the GDPR does not differentiate between models or common databases. So once a company stores personal data within the systems and an user wants to use their own right to delete this personal data, you have to show evidence that this data was also deleted from the model. So, or you have to show evidence or be assured that these data cannot be reconstructed from your model. So therefore, it's up to you how to realize these requirements, but there is no differentiation between AI and a common system. So in both worlds, you have to be compliant to the requirements from GPTBR.
Thank you. Here's an interesting question. Has there been any analysis on the operational cost of complying with the Act? Vasilis, Yannis?
I think Vasilis has made he had some data on this.
Yeah, so
that's interesting.
just to show you, so this is not based on my analysis, it's an official analysis from the EU Commission. And yeah, they expect that the compliance costs will around 70% of all AI spendings of the company. So from my point of view, it's a little bit overestimated, but it's just some rough idea how much it would be cost to be compliant. Therefore, I will again highlight the need to be to do this in very early stage to conduct effort to be prepared for the EU AI Act. And regarding the general purpose AI, the estimated costs are around 1% of the total investment. So it does not sound that much, but if you imagine that the total development cost of GPT-4 was around $500 million, so you might imagine how much would be cost to be compliant for GPAI. Therefore, there's a huge need for preparation and to deal with these requirements, because there are a lot of requirements, and therefore please be prepared and follow the news about the EU AI Act, monitor maybe some specialized standards regarding the EU AI Act, which might be mandatory, and just a rough overview about the estimated costs.
Thank you, Vasilis. Yannis, here's a question for you. How much buy-in is there at the board level for the AI adoption? And do you feel that the Act will make them averse to the AI? Considering also the costs that Vasilis just showed to us.
Yes, but on the other hand, especially generative AI needs to outweigh the costs, and the benefits from it seem quite promising. So I think that the boards will continue investing in AI, and actually I think they will keep increasing their investments on AI, on the AI technology. But the EU AI Act might make them more, let's say, prone to consider before they invest, because we saw in the past we saw lots of money going to AI systems but not fulfilling the business case. Probably now the boards might be more, let's say, cautious before they start investing, or they may want to have some guardrails in place before they even start investing.
Mm-hmm. And also not only where to invest, but how to invest.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Another question from Mr. Krike, Mrs. Krike. How would you recommend to work together with others on these topics?
I think that the EU, sorry, Vasily, I can start and can complement, facilitates a thing that we would like to call as the auditing committee. So as you noticed in our presentation, we say, please ask a lawyer, please ask a legal expert. So I think that, let's say lawyers, engineers, cross-functional teams, they need to work together in order to help organizations being compliant. So all in all, and that's I think the exciting thing with AI overall and the EU AI Act, that you need cross-functional teams. You need different skills, disciplines to collaborate in order to be able to put technology in control.
I fully agree with Yannis, because as Yannis underlined, you have to deal with a lot of different kind of domains. So starting from high level domains like data governance, information management systems with focus on AI, until the very technical aspects like in-depth testing, like robustness analysis, which are even for AI experts very special domains. And therefore, I want to also underline that you have to collect a lot of expert knowledge across different domains. And I think if I look on Code for Thought or TUVIT, we try to cover as many as possible of these kind of aspects.
Okay, let's take the last question for today. We are 2 minutes past the time. Yes, there are two. Let's see if we can make them both. First question from Panagiotis Veras. Assuming that we don't have any relevant AI acts in other parts of the world, especially in the United States, how would the European Act affect European-based AI businesses?
Well, I think that affects every kind, even if in other countries there are no, let's say, regulations, still, if US-based companies, they want to sell their systems in Europe, they need to comply. So all in all, there will be a ripple effect of compliance burden for companies outside Europe. So, and in that way, I think that they won't have a disadvantage compared to US-based companies, unless US-based companies they stop selling their systems in Europe because they need to avoid this kind of cost. But on the other hand, we see that US also tries to impose regulation. We also see UK following the example of UK, so of EU, sorry. So I think that in the future we will see more regulations. The point is the level of we want to foster innovation compared to legislation. So and I think this will be the differentiation between different countries.
And if we follow the example of GDPR, I think right now we have 75-80% of the world having laws similar to GDPR. I think this is something similar we will see with AI regulation. Last question. Do you foresee that there will be tighter controls coming in the future in regards with biases within AI algorithms?
I think yes. We have the example also of the New York City bias law that imposed specific requirements on the existence of bias for automated HR software. And the legislation passed last July. And I think we will see more and more companies trying to comply with that requirement. And and I think it will be tighter indeed.
Vasily,
I don't know if Vasily, yeah.
So I fully agree with you because even outside the EU Act, as Yanis highlighted, many other countries or states like the New York state and so on requires bias testing. But if you follow the news, you facing a lot of, let's say, headlines like discrimination and other similar topics regarding generative AI and so on. And I think this will, forcing legal authorities to also require such bias and fairness testing matrix.
All right. Yanis and Vasilis, thank you very much for your insights on this very hot topic. Of course, we didn't cover everything that AI Act is, but at least we scratched a little bit the surface of this regulation. Thank you to everyone that attended this webinar. As I said, it is recorded and it's going to be posted on the Code for Thoughts YouTube channel for on-demand viewing. We will let you know when it is live there through our social media. Thank you all. Have a nice afternoon, evening, and enjoy.